Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I got the Lakers on my mind this morning. Good morning to all of you. Of course, we do not play today. We do play tomorrow at 7 o'clock in Memphis for Game 2. And the word is that John Morant is likely, very likely, to be missed in that matchup for the Memphis Grizzlies. And my thinking in regards to that is don't buy it. Don't buy it. Believe it as it pertains to having a game plan ready to go in regards to John not being there, but also have your game plan ready for John Morant just the same. I always preach the possibility of misdirection. Always. Because at the end of the day, when you watch basketball enough, you see enough strategy that goes opposite of what it is you expect, adjustments that aren't adjustments at all, coaches thinking you're going to make changes, that kind of thing, so they make changes in reaction to the changes they think you're going to make. I always think that's possible. That it doesn't mean that's going to happen, but you got to be ready for everything. And in a situation like this where John Morant is essentially saying his pain level is a 10 out of 10, but they're not completely ruling him out, tells me that they're trying to mess with us. Because if he's as bad as they say he is, there's absolutely no chance he's playing tomorrow. Not a slight chance, not a maybe. His shooting hand and dribbling hand is hurt, so he's going to be a liability on the floor if he plays. If it's as bad as they say it is. And while they may be telling the truth, in fact, it's probably an 80% chance they're telling the truth. For the sake of the 20, here we are. So that's what I'm saying to you guys. I don't trust nobody when it comes to the NBA and it comes to these injuries. If they say he's hurt, if it ain't in the cast, I don't believe it. In the playoffs, I don't believe it, as it pertains to whether or not I'm preparing for you to be on the floor or not. I'm preparing for you to be there. And if you happen to not be there, then I have a plan for that. So that's what I want the Lakers to be thinking about. We got to stay on our toes because we have such a fantastic opportunity here that we want to make sure that everybody is prepared for what they're coming up against. Now, in Game 2, Tyus Jones is going to be somebody who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot if Ja doesn't go. That's going to make them significantly more of a good ball handling club. He ain't going to turn the ball over, and others aren't going to turn the ball over as much either. He's going to convert on more possessions for the Grizzlies than we probably expect for him too. John Morant is a hell of a point guard who can do a million different things at the same time. He's one of the best players in basketball, but he's still a developing point guard, and I think Tyus Jones is a better decision maker, a better floor general. At this stage, Ja will grow into being his best self eventually, but he's still a young person. And he's going through a lot of stuff off the court on top of this injury. So all of that comes together to expect Ja not to be his best for the rest of the season or even be out there. But Tyus Jones, it's a guy who's waiting for this opportunity. It's the type of thing that mamas pray for when they want their sons to have a shining moment. John Morant goes down the first game of the first round, and now Tyus Jones has an opportunity to show people exactly how good he is in the biggest stage possible. So we need to respect that possibility is there and jump ahead of it by making sure we have defenses ready for his skill set, defenses ready for his game, and be ready for him to play well. Desmond Bane needs to be respected as somebody who's going to be taking the next step forward, who's going to be the Jaren Jackson running mate. It's going to be Bane while we're out. That's their best attack. Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and in my humble opinion, it's Luke Kennard. Those are the three guys that I trust the most right now in that Memphis Grizzlies team. I know a lot of people believe in Dillon Brooks. We've talked a lot about Dillon Brooks. If Dillon Brooks happens to be efficient, Memphis Grizzlies are a tough team to even. They're damn near unstoppable. When he's at his best and everybody else is playing like they normally do, the Memphis Grizzlies are damn near unbeatable. But I mean, I just go by what I see. What I see is Dillon Brooks being a player who's able to sell himself, so to speak, more so than what it is he's actually doing on the floor. It's the same thing I said about our guy from earlier in the season, Patrick Beverley. He's loud, he's big, his spirit is all over the place, and he's going to sell more production than he's actually accumulating. And that's what I think of Dillon Brooks. He's a really, really talented closeout defender. He has excellent defensive skills. He can lock up a really solid player. But him locking up LeBron James, that's just confidence. He ain't actually doing that. He may be able to stagger him a little bit, but he ain't going to stop Bron from getting excellent numbers every single time he sees that man. And so that's really what it comes down to. I just don't think that that's a viable defensive opponent for LeBron James. And on top of that, his other weaknesses, which we talk about a lot, but don't want to overstate. He can hit shots. He can go for 25, 30 points easy. if he's feeling it, but he just tends to not be feeling it a lot, and he just shoots. Confidence is there. So you don't want this to be a big game for him. Obviously, this is a playoff game in his building, and he didn't win the first one. He's a very proud person. So I expect for him to play with either a lot of energy, play well, or be extremely disruptive, which also translates to him doing what he needs to do for his team, which means he's going to start a fight tonight. He's going to kick somebody in the back tonight. Something like that is going to happen with him because he's fighting for his playoff life. Now, that doesn't mean that he's mathematically fighting for his playoff life, but a winner is going to see this as a big problem. With your best player missing, and then two of the other main rotation guys have been out for the season for a while, it's time for Dillon Brooks to step up. And if he has a big game to give them, this is the game to do it. So that's what I'm expecting. Dillon Brooks is going to play well, but you know what I mean? It's one of those situations where I expect for him to brick shots, but I do expect for him to be loud out there. I do expect for him to be disruptive to us, and I do expect that we'll have a plan for that. I do expect that they're going to unleash, or is the word unleash? Yeah, because release is what I used last time, and that means that they're going to actually let that person go. We don't want to waive anybody, but I think that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to unleash that young fella, Kenny Lofton, very soon. He didn't get a lot of run in that first game. I don't suspect that that's going to be the case for the next 3 games. As we see this team, we need to expect Luke Kennard and Kenny Lofton have much bigger roles than they did in the first game. And I think that one of the reasons why the Memphis Grizzlies lost that game is because they didn't use those guys as more of a focal point. It would have just made for a much more efficient offensive night. So if you're looking at Tyus Jones, Luke Kennard, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson, that's going to be the attack that I expect to be coming at us. Saldama is going to shoot some threes. We got to take advantage of his size with Rui and hopefully put him in positions to foul quickly. Speaking of foul quickly, anytime you're going up against the Memphis Grizzlies, every time you're going up against the Memphis Grizzlies, you want to get Jaren Jackson Jr. in foul trouble. That should be the number one thing for every team every time they see him. If we can draw 2 quick fouls on him, you'll put him in a position to not be effective. He doesn't play well with foul trouble. That's the history. And so we got to go ahead and use that to our advantage and try our very best to get him in that. Get him in foul trouble. And once you do that, you're dealing with a bunch of players that quite honestly aren't going to be able to do nothing with you. They're not going to do nothing with you. After you get him off the floor, they're cooked without Ja. I'm just going to be honest with you. They can't make the playoffs in the regular season with that much missing from their roster, so they definitely can't beat us. But this is a pivotal game. Because if you drop this game without Ja comes back in game 3, then you got a series. In my humble opinion. The series goes right back to where it was, 0-0. Now you got to start all over again. So we got a lot of advantages here going into this game with Ja being out. Even though Tyus Jones is somebody to respect, they're still down a man, and that's going to make them more susceptible to injury, in-game stuff, and ultimately foul trouble. So that's where my head goes. We just want to respect the fact that even though they do have capable players, the reality is that they're decreasing in numbers, and that makes them more likely to be tired, more likely to not be able to handle what's coming at them. So that's the 2 sides of the injury coin that I think usually people only look at one side of that injury coin, and the other is that. So try to bring that to the table. Also, Austin Reeves coming off the big night, Rui Hachimura coming off the big night. I do expect that they're going to cool off. Not that I want them to, but it's just, Memphis is a good defensive team. Even without everybody, they still got guys that they can throw at guys. The open man must hit shots. That's essentially what I'm here to say. There's going to be an open man. Just like I always say about us with Beasley, and we leave the door open for someone to walk through. All they got to do is figure out which door to go through, and they can find the hole in our offense as long as he's on the floor. Well, that's exactly what I expect is going to be the case with the Memphis Grizzlies. Because we have so many bigs, and because they don't necessarily have the bigs to match up with all of our sides, if we work the ball around enough in most situations, we're probably going to find that door to walk through. There's a hole in their defense right now, essentially what I'm saying. Now, Jaren Jackson can effectively make life hard on multiple people in certain situations. He's the defensive player of the year. Congratulations to him. Deserved it. But at the end of the day, I do not believe that they have enough to rotate fully. If we work the ball around enough, eventually we're going to find that smaller person to lay the ball up over. That's what I think is going to be the problem with them, just in general, whether Ja's out there or not, without Steven Adams and Clark, with the bigs that we have. If we go with all sides, eventually that's what we're going to see in in most situations, I think, against this team right now. Uh, so I mean, we got this team where we want them. I'm not going to sit up here and say I think it's wise to be overly confident, but I do think it's easy to look at and say that the momentum is all wearing purple and gold, and we're probably in a much better position than most teams up 1-0, given the circumstances that the other team is dealing with. It would be a lie to say that we haven't had a lot of fortune over the last month, putting us in a position to be here. Players not playing, us getting away with size mismatches and happening to win certain games that we probably wouldn't win on a lot of nights the way we played. But nothing more than players just not being there. This guy didn't show up. Rudy socked his teammate. That guy hurt himself right before the game. That guy didn't get a chance to play. It's just been a lot of that stuff, and we do definitely appreciate the favor. And I think we need to take advantage of it by doing smart things so that we can deserve to be here rather than just be lucky. We've gotten a lot of calls go our way, obviously getting to the line more than everybody else. I think we've earned a lot of that, but some of that we can question at least. And so we just got to do what we got to do to appreciate the moment, stay in favor of the basketball gods by not disrespecting them and doing dumb stuff that doesn't help us as we complain about it nauseam. It's the only thing that can beat us. Other than that, it better be one of them superstars in the Eastern Conference. Other than that, if we do what we're supposed to do, I think the West is in trouble with us. I think the West ain't good at all when they have to run to LA. And that's the irony of the statement that Ja was saying. We good in the West, not if you run into this team here. If you could have avoided us, you might have been. But not with us having this much talent and not with you guys being undersized and undermanned. So I feel good after watching the Sacramento game. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm already scouting them. That's how confident I am about this Memphis series. And I think most Laker fans should be as well. Yeah, we want to make sure we respect Memphis and get past them and not take any possession off, not get ahead of ourselves. But at the same time, you have to glance over at Golden State and see what Sac is doing. You have to at least understand that we're going to be dealing with something no matter what, whether it be Memphis or Sac. It's going to be hard going forward. So the best thing to do is to end this series as early as possible. Get the Memphis Grizzlies out of here in 4 games. Now that they're undermanned, there's no reason for us to lose any games to this team. I'm not going to play around. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I got respect for Taylor Jenkins. I got all the respect for Jaren Jackson. I think those guys are really, really good. But any team missing that much should not beat us. Too good of a roster at this point. Now, if they were going up against Minnesota or they were going up against a lesser team, I would say that Memphis is still in a good position because they play good defense and they have good, sound decision makers. But you know me, I'm a depth guy. And so the end. You don't have that, you're in trouble in my book. And they don't have it. They had it, which is why they're still upright, because they could afford to lose 3 and 4 people and still have a solid team. But this is a bit too much to be going up against these LA Lakers. Anthony Davis has been so really good on the defensive end. His offense has been coming and going, but more so going as it pertains to him going up to 35, 40 points. He had the stretch where he had the back-to-back 38-point games, but since then he's been hovering around 15, 18, 22, 24, 25. I don't know if that's a recipe for the success of the Los Angeles Lakers in the long run. I do like the parity in scoring, certainly. I love when the Rui Hachimura can go for dang near 30 points, and then everybody else can chip in very well. But we still need Anthony Davis to be someone that teams feel they have to double team and triple team. Him being a monster on the defensive end is a completely different conversation. Set aside entirely. We need his offense to be sharp, because at the end of the day, with him taking on as much defense as required in order to defend a guy who can go for 60, opens up the floor a lot more for the rest of our offensive talent. And while they still think Rui is going to be a threat, while they still think Austin is going to be a threat, if they lock those guys down and AD's not getting the looks that he needs and he's cold, we could look at the situation where the game that we're in that situation will probably have trouble in. We'll need LeBron James to be heroic, historic, and efficient in order to win that basketball game. And I don't think we want to be relying upon Bron to win anything at this stage in his career. Not with what we have. That's not even the best way for us to win. So for me, I need Austin and Anthony particularly, to just stay aggressive offensively. Continue to look for your 15, 16 shots. I would rather you take more But for the parity of the rest of the roster and guys need their looks, I understand. But I want Anthony above 35 points every night. If I expect to beat the teams in front of me in these playoffs, he needs to be up. He needs to be up on the scoring side. And that way, no matter what the other guys are doing on the other side, we have the scoring to match. Because if he's going for 15 and Jaren's going for 40, if Bron ain't going for 35, we're kind of hoping our guys are hot. We're kind of hoping Austin's hot, hoping Dennis contribute, hope Rui can contribute, hope, D'Lo has it going. And if for some reason they don't have it going, there goes the L. Now, the likelihood of them all not having it going is very slim, which is why we're such a good team. But I don't care about that. I'm trying to secure victories. I don't want to lose no games. I want people to understand something. In 2001, I watched Shaq and Kobe's Los Angeles Lakers lose one single playoff game in the entire playoffs. The greatest playoff team in the history of the entire league is the 2001 Los Angeles Lakers. The only game they lost was against the Philadelphia 76ers in the infamous Iverson step over Ty Lue game. That was the only game we lost in the entire playoffs. We swept everyone. And so because I come from that, I believe in that. I believe that can be done again. I believe that we shouldn't have lost that game either. You should have saw my face when the Lakers lost to the Philadelphia 76ers in that game. I was shocked. I didn't think we were supposed to be losing no games. We were better than everybody. And it took overtime to beat us. So I'm not saying this team is as good as that team. No team is as good as that team is playing in the playoffs. But because I've seen that done before, I remember what it took to do it. That's essentially what I'm telling you. First of all, you need a dominant player like Shaq. Well, guess what? We got one. His name's 80. He ain't Shaq, but damn it, he might be as good. Honestly. And Shaq is an amazing two-way player, but Anthony Davis' skills, man, you know what it is. So it's one of those situations where, like, if he's playing his best, you know what I mean? He should be able to do what Shaq did for us. Say I'm lying. I ain't lying. That's the level that Anthony's at. That's the level he's at. So as far as I could tell, he should be able to do some of that stuff. And then Bron, we know Bron, man. So it's like, why can't, with the most talented team that either of them have ever been on, why can't they do unprecedented stuff in the playoffs against a weak Western Conference? I'm going to tell you right now, if we played the way we played last night or against the Memphis Grizzlies in Game 1, we're likely going to beat an undermanned Memphis Grizzlies team 4 times in a row. Now, that's not something that you bet on. A lot of things have to go in the right way. But right now, on paper, there's no game we should lose in this series. In the next series, we ain't lost to Golden State all year long. I think we lost one game to them. Probably didn't have nobody on the floor. So Golden State, we've had their number for about 2 years, just like the Clippers have had ours. That's how we are to Golden State. So I like our odds based on all of the things it's looking at. And I do this because that's a champion. I don't play with them like that. But they're down 0-2. I don't think they're getting out of that series at this point. But if they happen to, I like us against them more so than I like us against Sac. Sac is a team that I wanted to avoid. But I'm rather pleased that Sac is dealing with Golden State first. Draymond, Kavan, and those guys are beating up Sabonis. When he runs into us, he's going to be a little less himself right like he is right now because of all this punishment he's taking because of that thumb. So that is their Achilles heel. Even though he's literally their best player, he might be their best player. In my mind, as this series and as this season progresses, if they don't find ways to get him some rest, if they keep utilizing him like they've been doing, he's not even making out of that Golden State series, let alone be ready for us. He's getting beat up too much. And so that's what I'm recognizing over there in the Sacramento series, and we're paying attention to them very closely. So, I'm not skipping past Memphis, although I just think Memphis is up against it. If we were in Memphis' spot, I'd be really, really bleak in my mindset if we were missing this much. So, but at the end of the day, we are where we're at, and we got to keep on moving forward and do what we got to do. So, I expect my team not to be thinking too far ahead, just like unlike myself, who's a fan and can afford to do that. They need to be focused on the very next possession and getting off to a good start in the first quarter of the first game, just like we did in the last one. Anthony Davis jumping on top of them, Vanderbilt jumping on top of them early. That was exactly what we needed. An early scoring effort from both of those defensive players to solidify that both sides of the floor is going to be dominated by us. I love that. The first thing we did was have our defensive guys dunking the ball. So that was a tone setter. And then from there, we just watched our guys meet the moment. I can't really tell you guys how impressed I was with Rui and Austin in their first Laker playoff games. Play this well. Heck, Austin's first playoff games, period. I know Rui has had some playoff games with the Wizards, but he really showed up, with the Lakers on the road. And they showed me that guys are not afraid of the moment. They're not afraid of their own strength. That kind of thing. Guys can go out there and be confident next to Bron, next to Anthony, next to D'Lo, and still ball out. And that in the playoffs, when you see a team, how they've come out in the playoffs, especially their very first playoff game. Guys are jittery. They're usually nervous. They're not really sure what they should do. A lot of the stuff they've been doing all season and not sure if it's the way to go because it's the playoffs now, that kind of stuff. So you usually see players like Rui and Austin come out jittery and not play well. But these dudes came out excited about the pressure of meeting this playoff moment. I don't know what Darvin Ham and the guys told them, but it had them in a space where not only were they confident, they were uber confident going into a playoff game. So if that's the attitude of both of those players, it could be 18 for the Lakers. That's exactly what that can mean. Health is everything for all teams, but Rui Hachimura can't be scoring no 30-something points with everybody else doing what we're doing. Expect teams to beat us. And we scored 128 points with Schroeder not having a good game, with Troy not contributing at all, with Winya not even getting off the bench, with Bamba not getting off the bench, with Lonnie not getting off the bench. Y'all see what I'm saying? It's like we have so much production that we could have put on the floor on top of the 128 points that we gave the Memphis Grizzlies. You know what I mean? Bron gets hotter than that. AD only had 22 points. Austin's had career highs higher than that. D'Lo didn't even score 20 points. Like, these are things that I'm recognizing. I'm like, teams are in trouble. Because even if you stop 2 or 3 of them dudes, if the others are hot, you're in trouble. If Dennis is having a 30-point game, how the hell are you stopping the Lakers? You know what I mean? And it just becomes a situation where you can become very confident in the roster because of that. Very confident. So it's not a lot that's going to get in the way of this roster succeeding. Everybody on the team can contribute. Even Malik Beasley, the player that we complain about, is somebody who can blow the game open. If for some reason coach goes to him and he's hot, Memphis goes home just off the strength of his shooting. We've seen it already twice this year. So I feel for teams, you know what I mean, trying to go up against us. I really do, especially some of the ones that have high expectations but not enough depth. You're going home. If the Lakers do what they're supposed to do, you're actually going home. And it's going to hurt some feelings. I'm telling you, because there's a lot of teams out there that really believe in themselves. And I just look at their roster and I just say they're not going to be able to sustain any leads, man. It's not happening. Cleveland ain't going to be able to keep no leads. Phoenix ain't going to be able to keep no leads. Minnesota, no leads. These teams, they need to invest in their young talent like the Lakers have, man. Like the Lakers have. So that's what I got to say. Kudos to my squad. And as we go forward, we just got to keep our foot on the gas, keep that confidence going, and adjust to what it is that Taylor Jenkins is going to be doing. And expect Ja to be out there at some point. If he doesn't play in Game 2, he'll likely be out there in Game 3 or 4. Or if there's a 5, he'll be around before the series is over. That's a young kid with a tough mind, and he's been through a lot, and he doesn't want to end his season like this. And it may not be within his choice at all, but if he has anything to give us, you best believe he's going to throw it at us. I know it. I don't know that he plays in Game 2, but we're going to see him again. So that's what I want people to understand, that I believe Xavier Tillman needs to be respected as a defensive player. He's going to get his stops. And I circle back around to the shooting ability of the Memphis Grizzlies. Even though they have these games where they give up the 3, they have shooters that can also shoot you out of it. With Kennard, Bane, and Jackson. Those 3 particularly. And also Jones, who can get hot from behind the arc as well. Those 4 players can very easily go for multiple 3-point shots. And if for some reason they have a hot game where they score 22 threes, we're in some trouble. Luke Kennard has had a game where he went for 10 threes against, of course, his old team, the Clippers. 10 threes. I don't know that he has that in a playoff game, but I don't know that he doesn't. We need to zero in on him and give him some of that defense that Ja would otherwise be getting. And if they don't start him, I think they're making a mistake. And I know they got to... And see, that's the thing. And I've said this already about the Memphis Grizzlies, but for me, the best of the Memphis Grizzlies, with the exception of Jaren Jackson, is their guards. It's a combination of Jones, Morant, Bane, Brooks, and Kennard. And then Williams as well, if you want to throw him in there, even though I look at him as a wing, a 3. He's still somebody that you want in that wing position. Those are the guys that are coming at you. You can only put a couple of them on the floor at the same time. That's the problem. It's only but so much of their best they can ever have on the floor at once. And so that's where they really ultimately need to do some shuffling of their roster. They need to do some roster construction. I thought they were going to try to go after a guy like OG Anunoby. Maybe it just fell through or something like that. But that would have been a piece that would have helped them a lot in this situation. And remove one of those guards that they ultimately just lean on so much. I'm telling you, Dylan Brooks is the dude. I'm telling you, maybe I'm just looking at this the wrong way, but he's the guy that would be going to the bench. I would move him to the bench and bring in my more efficient scorer in either Kennard or Jones while Morant is out. He's just going to be the freelancer coming off the bench, doing stuff like I'd want Vando to do, which is chase people around and make life hard on him. Now, they're probably going to keep starting him because they want him against LeBron, but like I said, that's not a really viable position. You don't want him guarding the king. You just don't, man. That's my opinion. I respect him as a defender, but I just think that's fool's gold, man. He's got a lot of confidence. All that's going to do is fire up LeBron. That's what I tell Taylor Jenkins. All you're doing by putting Dylan Brooks on LeBron James is telling LeBron James that you want him to be extra inspired. That's all I would take from that. I don't think it's the right button to go up against our guy with that player. But they're going to do what they do. We'll see how it turns out for them. So, yeah, man. I like that I'm on this side, instead of Memphis side. I don't envy them at all. And this just kind of takes me back to what I said at the beginning of the season about Memphis, that everybody said this, I ain't the only one, but they just tend to boast and brag and hold themselves as if they've won championships or as if they've done it. And that's corny for a specific reason. It's corny because you don't know what it takes to get there. And if you did, you would not see being that way as something that is respectable for you, because at the end of the day, what you're not taking into account is heartbreak, sustained heartbreak. When you lose every year in whatever fashion you do, it gets to a point where you start realizing the years are behind you, the energy that you left behind you is behind you, and that it's hard to get championships even when you do things the right way. Sometimes even when you're doing all the stuff the right way, you just go up against Michael Jordan, he knocks you off. So you don't take those things for granted, and you don't disrespect the journey that it takes to get there. So therefore, you ain't gonna boast and brag as if you've been the big boy holding the trophy, because once you've gotten that trophy, you realize how much of what is not in your control getting the trophy actually is. So you don't disrespect the process like that. You don't sit up there folly and all this stuff, looking at everybody who's won it like you know something they don't know, when they've been through battles, protected themselves from heartbreak, and found victory while lending heartbreak to their opponents. In that same vein, you don't know nothing about that because you were one of them opponents they lent that heartbreak to. So for me, it's like Memphis is young, so they don't respect the heartbreak over 8 and 9 years of not making it. You know, getting close, not getting there, having a great season, and then your best player going down the last minute. These type of things make it so that you respect the journey more so than to act like you've already been on that journey when you ain't been on it. Only person who's going to act like they've been on that journey and having not been in it is somebody who ain't been in it. Because if you've already been at that mountaintop, you don't think like that. You've already been through hell. You know how hard it is to get through 4 teams in the playoffs. You do not act like big bro. The context from which you would not want to even do that would be present for you. Memphis don't have that, and you can just tell that they're still stupid. They still don't respect the journey. They still don't respect the fact that they're about to waste years losing. Why? Because they like this. This is why they're going to lose. They're going to have extra bulletin board material against every opponent they go against. Every building they go into is going to want to specifically see them lose because of that energy. That's a distractant. It's not what a champion wants. You got plenty coming up against you with the strategy you got to deal with. You ain't going to give the other team bulletin board material. A real champion is going to know this. They're going to do everything Desmond Bain ain't doing because in respect of the journey, they're not going to make things hard on themselves. Desmond Bain calling out players. Rui Hachimura, you ain't going to do that again. Bro, you ain't even got off the ground. When was the last time you done anything? Rui Hachimura just scored 29 in a playoff game. What the hell did you score in that playoff game? See what I'm saying? But he walking around like he got 4 rings, like he Draymond or something. You ain't won nothing, bro. You won nothing. You ain't even got off the ground. Nobody even knows who you are yet. You're supposed to make your name right now. And the only thing you're doing is making people look at him and say, see, he don't respect the journey. He think he done something he ain't done. And if he had done it, he would know not to do this. That's all anybody's saying about y'all. You know what I mean? John Morant running around like he a gangster. That's cool. But look what happens in the aftermath. That was just a parallel to everything else the Memphis Grizzlies go through. They act childish. They run and bump their head, and then they realize they shouldn't have been acting childish. Look at Ja. He's a walking metaphor for the entire Memphis Grizzlies. The entire thing, run around confident but stupid. I got the gun, dumb stuff. And then the consequences come, and he's depressed as hell. Because that's what happens when you play around with energy you ain't got no business playing with. It leads you to depression. It leads you to sadness. It leads you to losing. So I always tell people, stay competitive in your nature. Don't give the other team bulletin board material. Look at Draymond. He really thought he was doing right. He stomped that man's chest, got himself thrown out of a playoff game. He's going to be down 0-2, probably get suspended for game 3. He's going to probably throw the whole series away because of when he did what he did and how he did it. You know what I'm saying? And then he's going to go into the offseason asking for a bunch of money. It's like, bro, do you even know what you need to do to help your team? And this is the guy I said had a bunch of rings. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at this point, Memphis needs to understand. Even the guys who have the trophies got things to learn. Even the guys who have the dynasty ain't excellent like that. Because if they did, they wouldn't be showing you examples of what not to do in situations like this. Leadership is lacking in the league. That's obvious. But people are learning hard lessons in real time. And the Memphis Grizzlies, if the Lakers do what they're supposed to do, we'll teach them that lesson again. And they'll have another heartbreaking year where hopefully they'll learn to respect the journey and not act like they've done something they haven't done. Because that makes you look like a buffoon. And the only person who doesn't know it is you, Memphis Grizzlies. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.